What are the wild cards for post-Cyberstorm access? Don't be like 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out. More Isles content. Number one on our list here is going to be Gold Pride. You know, Gold Pride with a splash of punk in the deck is honestly like the flavor of the month. I'm putting this in wild card because I don't know how this is going to do just yet. I think that Gold Pride with the new fusion is cute. A monster that can't have its effect negated usually can do something as long as you don't have an issue making it. The problem with the fusion is you have to make it through a monster that has to activate its effect. And if you've learned anything about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, yeah, quick effect, activated effect means that your opponent can force you to bait it. Or, on the other hand, if they've got a negate set up, well, then they're just going to negate it. And the monster itself, when it activates the effect to do the fusion summon, is 100% vulnerable. That's where our issue kind of comes into play with this. Now, with a punk package, on the other hand, you can pay life points to your heart's content. You'll be able to set up all of the big, synchros you could ever want in the world. And that is where our free real estate comes in that makes this deck turn into a very scary monster. As long as Gold Pride can, set up, do the basic lines of play that it wants to do, and then the punk package maintains its synergy, that's good. The fact that they added in a reactive play to the deck is good. I just wish we had more monsters within the pool of things in order to use. Maybe like a ref or something would have been a cool call, but we don't have that. So working with the narrow pool of things that we have, you are going to have to kind of rely on that punk package to make the deck as competitive as possible. I know some people don't want to hear that, but that's kind of where we are. Next up is Stun. Time-tearing Morganite, aka Ledger of the Ledgerman Double Summon. So what do we actually get for this deck? Well, you get 2 draws. You now have access to 2 double summons. Honestly, the biggest thing is the double summon. Being able to put a Banisher and an Inspector Border on the field in one turn is enough to make most of your opponents just look at you and go, wow, I hate this game. This is so unfair. And I get that, all right? A stun player being able to set up that well is actually disgusting. Now, the other impressive thing about all of this is keep in mind that stun does need resources. Stun will get those resources by drawing additional cards. Those draw cards are going to be the thing that will put this deck on top in terms of things. It's just going to come down to, once again, deck building ratios. Do I have the correct options? Is everything that I have seen in this matchup actually, done well? Stun can't break boards for crap, so you're going to have to rely on going first, the power of your Solemns. That's where your deck building is going to come into play. As long as you can round out ratios for what you need for the deck, you'll be in an incredibly better position. But I think Morganite does give this deck so much more options. And the more deck building that you can actually, kind of put together, the better off you'll be. That's why we love Stun. All right, you can cover so many bases in one deck, and it's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to banish or Inspector Border my opponent just because I opened up Time-Tearing Morganite / Duality. Next up is Minconco. Now, this is a personal pick of mine because I think not only for the Warrior Toolbox aspect of what you get out of this deck, but I think because of what the deck can actually do, the equips are so cool. Actually, I think the monsters are really cool. Having an entire deck that can battle phase literally reflect damage back on your opponent is a very unique concept. A lot of people, I think, kind of underestimate what you can get with an archetype like this. Now, you do have a whole lot of underlining synergy with this, as everything being a splashable warrior monster opens up a lot of doors for, well, a lot of unfair interactions. That's kind of like the downside to this, because you do have to think about it from the standpoint of how much splashability can I kind of put into this deck. And yeah, I understand that the first thing a lot of people are going to look at is, well, you know, pure Minconco is not the best. Yeah, I get that. But I want to play the deck. I really wish that we had Kaiser Coliseum so that we could set up one very big, you know, Minconco monster, and then, you know, go ahead into like the whole phase reflect. You know, you can't out it. But also, like, the ritual monster is a really cool gimmick in and itself as well, because, you know, you can summon it without ritual summoning it, which is kind of really cool. I wish we could have more interactions like that, but this kind of set the precedence for like monsters that we can actually use in terms of bypassing their conditional effects. But Minconco as a toolbox is really cool. Minconco as a pure deck is a lot of fun. Minconco as extenders is the best method of going about them. But I think that in all sorts of capacity that they'll be sticking around with a new support, whether or not it be extension options or, you know, aiding in other ritual-based strategies. Yeah, you gotta love decks that can search for general utility options. Next up is Dinosaurs. Ultimate Conductor and Friends. Now, what's very interesting about this is Dinosaurs at the literal end of this format, actually, before SIAC, actually smashed on a couple of regionals. I know a lot of people didn't really pay attention to that, but if you got two dinosaur decks double topping a regional, you kind of gotta, you know, take a moment and think about that. You know, like, why is this deck having success now all of a sudden? Well, whether or not it be a more dedicated scrap version, which actually did see success, where you're cutting back on the reliability of popping the babies in order to generate the advantage, or you're shaping things up in the form of other picks for the deck. You have a lot of utility options in both builds. Also, the value off of the field spell. All right, let's not forget about, you know, good old hand your opponent a token. Congratulations, you just messed up an entire Kashtira player's turn, because now they can't special summon. Yes, they can still birth, do the additional normal summon, but they're not always going to open up birth. You know, if you take away their ability to deploy Unicorn to get that search, well, congratulations, you did effectively what you needed to do. I think that that's really, really good at the end of the day. But the rest of the power that Dinosaur has comes in the form of its board-breaking capabilities. The ability to, oh, look, I went second, I opened Evenly Matched, or I opened Ultimate Conductor. You know, set up a field, now I can go ahead and plow through this. Now I can do, you know, my thing. That is honestly the Dinosaur experience right now. But also, the deck can make some very threatening boards. That's why I mentioned like the scrap build as well. You know, if this deck is able to kind of set up with its full scrap board, it really will, you know, punish the opponent at the end of the day. So kind of keep that in mind overall. And then we have Demarly. Now, the reason why I want to mention Demarly is because there's an old list that was popping around quite some time ago where you would play Demarly with Eldritch. And then you're just like, oh, cool, like, now I have all these big monsters coming out. You know, like, what are you going to be able to do to this? While it is not 100% competitive, there is a slight chance that somebody's going to revisit the Demarly engine and try to combine it with Eldritch. And then you're going to see this little hybrid build kind of come out of the woodwork here and do some pretty interesting things. I do think that it is entirely a fun option. Yu-Gi-Oh! Players do forget that fun decks do exist, and it's just, I can't even take this seriously. I've seen this deck actually work. You kind of have to limit your extra deck in terms of, you know, ability in order to maximize the summons on the monsters, because of, you know, their slightly harsher conditions to summon. But if you can perfect this deck and get this down, it is one of the most interesting little engines that you can do. Obviously, pure Eldritch is probably better, but in terms of creativity, in terms of how things are going for the rest of the deck, it is it's pretty good. So those are our wild card picks. And by wild card, I mean there's something that you should be able to have a decent amount of success with, whether or not locally, maybe get your invite with, but it's definitely something. So please, leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later today, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.